What is the difference between interface and an abstract class? Uh, Actually, they are quite different. Interface is kind of a template. Uh, it's uh, it's like you have just function declarations inside it. You don't have any function definitions or an implementation inside it. It's just like a template with only function declarations. And the classes, they implement the interfaces. They have it means that they implement those functions that are defined in those interfaces. And of course, those functions can be public or private, but of course, public makes more sense because other classes have to implement them. Otherwise, they don't make sense. A Java class can implement multiple interfaces. Uh, yes, and a C sharp class can also implement multiple interfaces, Java or C sharp, whatever you use here. Uh, Similarly, an interface can also extend other C sharp or Java interfaces. So you can have, an interface extending other interfaces, or a C sharp or Java class implementing multiple interfaces, whatever C++, whatever you use here. Um, no, what are the abstract classes? Abstract classes are classes which have a default implementation of the functions in them. So then the subclasses are actually the childs of the abstract classes, and they kind of implement more specific information or more specific logic depending on what those child classes want to do, and of course a child class can extend only one abstract class. Not of course, but actually it is in Java and C sharp, both of these languages. Multiple inheritance is not possible, so you can extend only a class from only one abstract class. You cannot have multiple because if let's say if you have two abstract classes with the same function like draw on two abstract classes, and you want to derive your child class from those both of those abstract classes, then this will cause a confusion that which draw is your child class if it wants to implement that draw function, which is it going to implement. Of course it has to implement that function. Can extend other Java or C sharp class and also implement multiple interfaces. Okay. So a class can extend from one class and also implement one interface. This is possible. Uh, of course, it can implement. This is just like a class can implement only one abstract class and can implement multiple interfaces, as I said before. So this is sorry, I just got confused a bit. Um, so let me explain you this with the help of an example. So let's say we have an interface which is, let's say, something like interface car, let's say, and it has a function called uh, make car. Again, we can say make car, and it has a function called, for example, uh, make wheel, let's say, and just a declaration. And let's say each different kinds of car will have a different kind of wheel. Let's say will have the same kind of wheel. Let's say they will have the same kind of wheel. Let's say, but the car will be different. Let's say. So if we have a class called Porsche, which implements this interface car, then we need to, for example, make wheel will say return, or let's say just print out or see out, whatever. uh, Make wheel, let's say alloy wheel. because let's say we have an alloy wheel. Okay, and then we will implement the make car also, and sorry, the make car will say, it will print, let's say, Porsche car. So this is, we are extending, sorry, we're not extending, we are implementing an interface car, and this interface is implementing these two functions, make wheel and make car, you know. So that's how it is, like if I want to have another car, then it will be like class Mercedes, CDEZ, and we will say make wheel. It will again print the same thing as here, alloy wheel, because the wheels are same, and the make car function will print Mercedes car. So this is the implementation of the interface. uh, how we implement classes using interface, or how we implement the interface functions. Now I will use the same example and tell you how to do the same thing, like, you know, write these class functions, but instead of an interface car, we will have an abstract class car. So now we have an abstract class car, which has two functions. One is make wheel, which, as we saw, always return alloy wheel. So we can also define this function here. It will print alloy wheel here. So we have a function definition inside the class. Let's cross it from here. And now we have another function, make car. We can also have its default implementation here, but let's say we don't define it here, we just declare it here. So if we have a class now which is extending this abstract class car, which is, let's say, Porsche, is extending this extends car, then Porsche only needs to implement make car, and it can return, say, Porsche. Similarly, the Mercedes car class Mercedes needs to only implement make car and return Mercedes car. So you see that this function is, because we are extending from this class make wheel, so this car class, Porsche is extending from class also, from class car also, and